Hello again from a windy and blustery and pretty cold Emirates Stadium today, where Arsenal women will play Chelsea women. Huge top of the table clash in the WSL. Just to set the scene for you, Chelsea are 3 points clear of Arsenal at the top of the WSL. However, Arsenal have a game in hand. Now, it has to be said, in my opinion, there's probably slightly more pressure on Arsenal in this fixture, not just because they're slightly behind Chelsea, but because of the way the fixtures fall in the second half of the season. So Arsenal still have to play Manchester City twice. They still have to go to Manchester United, and they go to Chelsea in May for the penultimate game of the season. So it's quite a difficult fixture list for Arsenal in the second half of the season. So I think they definitely have to not lose today. A win would put them in the box seat in the title race, whereas I think a draw would probably suit Chelsea more. And of course, Arsenal are also dealing with the loss of Vivianne Miedema and Beth Mead, two of their most productive players over the last 4 seasons or so. So there's going to be a little bit of adjustment there. A lot of activity for Arsenal in January. There's going to be 4 new players in the squad today, and probably, well, certainly I think another striker on the way before the end of January. So Arsenal are coping with a lot of turnover in the squad. They're having to bring players in to replace players, and this is going to be the first game for a lot of players. There are going to be at least 2 or 3 debuts today, probably from the bench. So absolutely enormous game for Arsenal today. 46,500 expected here at Emirates Stadium, and also Jordan Nobbs, who of course left the club last week, is a special guest, and she'll be presented on the pitch at half-time, and it'll be really nice to see her get a chance to say a proper goodbye to the Arsenal fans, particularly in front of this many people. But aside from that, huge game on the pitch. Come on, Arsenal. And we're underway here, Arsenal versus Chelsea at Emirates Stadium. Lena Hurtig starting for Arsenal in what I believe is her first WSL start, so quite a big game to come into to start for her, and I think that really emphasises the injury situation without Beth Mead and Vivianne Miedema. But it's a new Arsenal in an attacking sense. Let's see how they get on in this top of the table clash. So we're halfway through the first half here. Arsenal 0, Chelsea 0. Exactly the kind of game I expected so far. Both teams kind of feeling each other out structurally, both very sound. Game dictated at the moment by how both teams are pressing. So Chelsea are playing with Jessie Fleming quite high up the pitch, and that is obviously about disrupting Arsenal's build-up play, particularly through the centre halves. But Arsenal are doing quite well at drawing that press in and then going over the top of it, going out wide to Lena Hurtig and Caitlin Ford. And they've had a couple of opportunities, they've had a couple of shots. So maybe Arsenal are just about edging this so far, but this is very similar to the last time the teams played each other in February. It is a little bit of a chess match at the moment, 0-0. So half-time 0-0 here at Emirates Stadium. Very much a kind of, like I said earlier, a little bit of a chess match. Both teams really feeling each other out. I think from an Arsenal perspective, that front four, it's a very physical front four. And you can see that structurally and physically, they're getting into some really good positions, causing Chelsea some trouble, particularly in those channels where Arsenal really like to play, but perhaps technically, touch not always there, the final decision not always there, and I think that's where Arsenal are maybe missing the class of a player like Vivianne Miedema. But clearly at the moment, these games in recent years defined by the way the teams press one another, and Chelsea have obviously concentrated on disrupting Arsenal's distribution from the centre, and Arsenal really looking to use those wide areas to cause Chelsea some problems. Would say Arsenal probably slightly on top at the moment, but 0-0 at half-time, probably a fair reflection of this one. So second half is underway here at Emirates Stadium. Big second half for Arsenal. Like I said before the game, I think really they're probably under more of a pressure for a result here than Chelsea, but also I think this game is really going to be defined by the benches. Chelsea have Fran Kirby to come on. Arsenal do have attacking options on the bench for the first time in a little while in Gio Quiros and Victoria Pelova, albeit they haven't played for the club yet. So Not sure what kind of impact they'd make if they came on, but it really feels like this game might be defined by the type of substitutions the teams make as the game draws on.
Arsenal 1, Chelsea 0. Kim Little converting from the penalty spot. Arsenal have had a bright start to the second half, particularly getting Caitlin Ford one-on-one with Niamh Charles down that left-hand side. That's really something Arsenal tried to do in the first half. And on this occasion, Niamh Charles didn't get the tackle right. Maybe a question about whether it was outside of the area. The rule does say that if a foul starts outside and continues inside, that should be a penalty. But nevertheless, Kim Little steps up, scores the penalty as she usually does. 1-0 to Arsenal after 57 minutes. So we're halfway through the second half. It's still Arsenal 1, Chelsea 0. Arsenal with a really concerted period of pressure after their first goal. Had some chances, but as you'd expect, Chelsea coming more into the game now, pushing on. Fran Kirby's come on for Jess Fleming, which is an attacking substitution. They've also changed their right back, Chelsea, brought on Eva Perisset for Niamh Charles, who I think was really struggling to deal with Caitlin Ford, and that's where Arsenal's penalty came from. But I think the dynamic for the last kind of quarter of the game is going to be very different to the dynamic we've seen for the first 3 quarters of the game, and maybe we'll see a bit more cat and mouse with Chelsea pushing on and Arsenal looking to catch them on the break. And that's Chelsea with the equaliser, Sam Kerr. Arsenal have been under a lot of pressure in the last 10 to 15 minutes, haven't been able to get on the ball, have been inviting pressure a little bit, balls coming into the box, and when that happens, Sam Kerr's always going to get one chance, and she's got one. Cross comes in, header in the 6-yard area. Very typical Sam Kerr goal. A few minutes to go now. Arsenal have got to be careful not to lose this one from here. Should we do the full-time wrap? So it finished Arsenal 1, Chelsea 1 at Emirates Stadium. Sam Kerr with a late equaliser to take a share of the points. Arsenal, of course, took the lead at the beginning of the second half with a Kim Little penalty, and at that point of the game they were looking really, really good. They were really on top of Chelsea. They started the second half very, very well. Do you think they dropped back just a little bit early in the game though and just invited a bit too much pressure? Arsenal do have attacking subs on the bench now for the first time in a few weeks, but most of them haven't played for the club yet. So Arsenal really only made one substitution, Katie McCabe for Lena Hurtig, and I do think that defined the last part of that game a little bit, because you could see that the Arsenal front four was tired and Arsenal were unable to sustain pressure. They invited Chelsea onto them, and Chelsea didn't create an awful lot of clear-cut chances, but they don't have to when they have Sam Kerr up front. Sam Kerr probably kicked the ball about 4 times today, but one of those times was inside the 6-yard area, and that's why she's so dangerous. So, not a terrible point for Arsenal, but really having led the game and probably shaded the game overall, there's probably some regrets at least that they didn't go and get a second goal when they were 1-0 up. But 1-1, and that keeps Arsenal 3 points behind Chelsea at the top, albeit with a game in hand.